Today, I'm going to give you a guitar technique tip straight from the grisly world of powerlifting that's going to help your picking hand accuracy, articulation, synchronization, and excessive tension control at the same time. And it goes like this. You want to look for a moment arm advantage in everything you play. Now, what the heck is a moment arm? Basically, it's a fancy term to describe leverages. Now, in powerlifting, the goal is to lift the most weight you possibly can, and in many ways, the amount of weight you can lift on a certain exercise is heavily dependent on your body leverages, or in other words, how you're built. Powerlifters often talk about moment arms because even though your body proportions and limb lengths are fixed, you can't do anything about them. The way you train and the way you develop your technique for certain lifts is going to be heavily dependent upon finding that moment arm advantage that I mentioned. Fortunately, as guitarists, we're not as restricted. We have a lot of wiggle room in our technique in terms of finding that perfect moment arm advantage that's going to make playing guitar feel a whole lot easier. So let's go a little deeper into this idea of moment arms, keeping in mind that I'm definitely not a physicist. I'm just a guitar player slash powerlifter, but I know just enough about this topic to explain how this applies to making your guitar technique better, which is all that counts. So a moment force, very simply, means something that causes rotation. So if you think about changing a light bulb, or as a guitar player standing there with your arms crossed, watching somebody else do it, talking about how much better you would have done it, the moment force is the rotation of your arm that causes the light bulb to spin and go into the socket. Or if you think about tightening a bolt with a wrench, the force of the wrench pulling on the bolt is moment force. The distance between the bolt and the edge of the wrench handle is the moment arm. And the moment arm is simply the distance between the point being rotated and the object doing the rotation. And the longer the wrench, the longer the moment arm in this example, meaning the more rotational force you can apply to the bolt and the easier it is to tighten a heavy bolt. With me so far? Good. Now let's talk about picking on guitar. So when you pick a note, even just a simple downstroke on the G string, you're exerting rotational force on the string. But the string, of course, applies pressure back onto your pick. And so here we get into the moment arm situation and where you need to find the moment arm advantage. And when I'm applying pressure to the string like so, and I'm exaggerating here so you can see it better, just pushing on the string as if I'm going to play a downstroke, the pick is being acted upon from two different planes. One, by the picking hand, and two, by the string itself applying pressure back on the pick, resisting it. So to use moment arm language here, we got two moment arms happening. One is between the picking hand and the pick, and the second one between the string and the pick. So if you're trying to minimize the rotational force that the string is exerting on your pick, what you want to do is lengthen the moment arm between the string and the pick. And this is a very, very long-winded way of saying what you want to do is bring the pick as close as possible to the joints that are doing the picking. To give you an extreme example, if I hold the pick on the side by the very edge like this, and I try to play just a simple downstroke or an upstroke, it's going to be impossible to do it with any kind of power without the pick just flying out of my hand. That's because with this position, it's impossible for me to overcome the amount of force that the string is applying back on the pick. But the closer I make the pick sit towards the joints that are doing the picking, all of a sudden the easier it is to pick with power and articulation with very little force. This is that moment arm advantage that I'm talking about. Now, of course, the amount of force you need to push through the string to play downstrokes and upstrokes is so laughably small that it seems almost ridiculous to think about it in terms of moment arm mechanics. But if you're looking to optimize your technique and build a lot of speed and efficiency in your playing, then this is your opportunity to find your moment arm advantage. Because when it comes to maximizing your speed and playing, let's say, at 1,000 notes a minute, which is 16th notes at 250 BPM or faster, every little detail counts. And the way I achieve this moment arm advantage for my picking style is by bringing the pick as close as possible to my thumb joint and bending the thumb. So this way I really wedge it in there as close as I can. I think of just wedging it through my forearm as close to my elbow as I can get it, because that's just the visualization I have in my mind. When I wedge the pick as far back as I can inside of my wrist, even driving it towards my elbow like I described, it becomes so much easier to pick the notes with a lot of volume, but not have to pick the notes really, really hard, comparatively speaking, even when playing unplugged. Now, caveat, this is the way I found moment arm advantage for my picking style, for my technique. This is all largely dictated by my arm length, my hand position on the guitar, my sitting position, and a whole bunch of other variables. There are great players who pick in a way very similar to what I described. There are also many great players who pick the opposite way from what I described. So don't just take the example that I gave you of tucking the pick as close as possible to the wrist joint as some kind of dogma and that I'm saying that everybody should pick this way. way. That's not what I'm saying. If you sit with the guitar on your right leg, for example, which I don't recommend you do, by the way, but if you do, then, whatever, then your moment arm advantage is probably going to be different, partly because your shoulder is higher, your elbow is going to be higher than somebody who sits with the guitar on the left leg, and so you may get away with having to pick a little bit forward like this, instead of having it tucked way back as far as possible. If you're holding the pick on the pad of the index finger instead of the slide of the index finger, you also may not be able to even tuck the pick as far back as possible. So all of these details are going to vary from person to person, but the principle of the moment arms and finding that moment arm advantage, that does not change. What you don't want to do is look at some guitar player you like and say to yourself, oh, this guy sits like this, he angles his pick this way, he holds his arm like this, that's exactly what I'm going to try to copy, and that's going to be my technique. No, but it is this thought process that's going to allow you to refine your picking style that really, truly works for you. When you're doing pull-offs, the finger is applying force against the string, and the moment arm exists between the string, the fingertip, and the point of the finger, the base of the finger that originates the pull-off. And what you want is the longest moment arm possible. You want to lengthen that wrench as much as possible because the string here is the bolt that's resisting being rotated, and what you want is the longest wrench possible so you can apply the most amount of rotational force with the least amount of effort. This is why when I talk to people about their legato, one of the first things I correct is I tell them to open up their hand more, because the more open these joints are, the more power you can get to the string when you do pull-offs. When your hand is closed like this, which happens if you are either bending your wrist backwards like this or have your thumb wrapped around the neck or even both, the more closed your fingers are, the shorter the moment arm is, the harder it is to get the string in motion, let alone that you can't even stretch the fingers properly. That's a whole separate topic, but having the hand closed like this does not give you any moment arm advantage. The more you go from this to this, the easier legato becomes. And this is also why non-perpendicular fretting that I talked about in my other video gives you an even greater moment arm advantage, because instead of just engaging your fingers, you can engage more of your wrist and even your forearm to do pull-offs, and that makes legato a whole lot easier. And this is why I often use the non-perpendicular fretting hand position for a lot of my legato licks. And to find your moment arm advantage, you basically have two ways. One is to look at your technique in the mirror or in the webcam and analyze everything, and through process of trial and error and evolution, find the way of picking the strings and fretting the notes that allows you to produce the greatest amount of volume from the notes with the least amount of effort and the most amount of efficiency. That's going to be your moment arm advantage. Or if you want to speed up the process, you can just have somebody who already understands this stuff look at your technique, ask him to tell you exactly what tweaks to make in your technique, in your practice habits, all that stuff that are going to often help you find that moment arm advantage, often in just a few minutes. But whatever path you choose, it's all going to come down to understanding body mechanics, thinking things through, and proceeding from the foundation of principles of effective technique that allows you to get the most volume from the notes with the least amount of effort. And once you start getting this body mechanics stuff down, the next big needle mover for your technique and for your speed is going to be understanding how to practice the right way so you can build speed in the least amount of time. And if you want some help with that, I can help you in my free video masterclass called Guitar Speed Formula. You can check it out at the link below. What it does is show you a new way to build guitar speed without using that kindergarten stuff of starting slow and gradually building up speed in small increments. We're way past that here on this channel. I'm going to show you a new way to build speed that you probably have not seen or heard about before, that's not going to require you to do any slow practice at all. And if you do what I show you in that masterclass, you can very often see some speed gains as early as tomorrow. If you want to check it out for free, hit the link below, enter your email address, I'll send it right over to you. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video just like this for you. This is Mike Filipov, guitar practice expert from PracticeGuitarNow.com. I'll see you next time.